You know, it's easy for us
Americans
to hype up tech when we're the ones paying considerably less than a majority of the planet for most of it, let's be honest. And that's just it. We live in our own little bubble and often fail to consider just how fortunate we are to live here. I mean, sure, our healthcare system may be a bit or totally screwed up depending on who you are, and we may have some of the worst first world crime around the world depending on which city you live in, but damn it, we can grab RTX 2070 Supers for under $500, and that's noteworthy to the right consumer. So let's investigate foreign markets in this video. And I mean foreign with respect to where I am currently, that is the US of A. How much do countries around the world pay for popular graphics cards? It's gonna sting. NZXT's Extraordinary Week brings the heat October 13th through the 14th by slashing prices on all custom builds and pre-builds by $100 for subtotals over 1,000. Enjoy high quality components and expert cable management packaged with a 2-year warranty on all parts and labor for peace of mind. Consider the streaming PC, marked down to $1399 for its Ryzen 7 3700X and RTX 2070 Super. Or how about the Starter Pro, which becomes eligible for the $100 discount when paired with an accessory. Any way you slice it, this deal won't last long, so click the link below to start shopping. So I kicked things off over a week or so ago when I asked all of you to submit links and converted prices for 3 graphics cards on Twitter: the RX 5700 XT, the RTX 2070 Super, and the RTX 3080 if available. Now obviously I couldn't account for every AIB in existence, and I didn't expect any of you to do that either, so I gathered as much data as I could and used links some of you submitted to verify prices across the board. Typically, either the lowest or the second lowest price for the card in question was dialed into my chart if I could verify that it was a direct from vendor sale, not some random third party trying to charge a bit more than they probably should. And this is the chart I came up with. So I started first with US prices, those are up top, and it was pretty easy to figure those out, obviously living in that country. Now the remaining countries have prices listed in USD or equivalent USD, which were converted using available exchange rates. You could do so on Google in like 10 seconds. Some important things to note though, these conversions are time dependent. First off, I converted these in early October 2020, and something drastic could happen between currencies between then and whenever you might be viewing this video. And to that end, since we're on a global scale, so to speak, these prices are also subject to changes in tariffs, taxes, import fees, and other political influences. Also, and this is a big point, this is probably the most important point of them all, many countries listed in this chart incorporate taxes into sales prices up front, meaning you're actually getting an underrepresentation in certain countries, including the United States. So for instance, my wife is German, we'll use Germany as an example. They require the sales tax to be incorporated into the list price that you see on domestic e-retailer sites and even in store. So by doing things this way, you know exactly what you'll pay when you bring something to the register. Whereas in the United States, you'll need to factor in your representative, or your respective, I should say, state's sales tax, if applicable. Some states don't even have sales tax for most non-exempt purchases. So it varies depending on where you live. Germany and other countries around the world are also subject to a VAT, or a value-added tax. I'll be kind of switching between the two in this video, which typically ranges anywhere between like 10 and 20% on top of the product's retail price. And in Germany's case, again, this VAT would be factored into the sale price, which is one of the reasons why Germany's RTX 3080 prices home in at around 900 equivalent US dollars or more, compared to the 750 you'd expect to pay in the US. In fact, kind of a side note, but interesting enough, if you factor Germany's VAT, which is about 19%, into the US's list price for a 3080, let's say, you'll end up very close to the $900 or so equivalent USD that Germans would expect to pay. Kind of interesting. But there are other countries in this chart that typically pay a bit more than even the EU for graphics cards. One of those is Kenya. Woo! Kenyans are getting bagged with this one. The Kenyan government imposes a normal VAT of 16%, but also incorporates an import duty, which is a fancy phrase for a tax placed on imported goods. This duty in Kenya's case can run all the way up to 25%, which one would expect to be passed down to the consumer in the adjusted sale price. And that's assuming that the country hasn't worked out a deal with the exporting government in question. And yeah, this could at least partly explain why graphics card prices in general are so freaking high in this country. South Africa is another country with taxes that extend outside of traditional VAT. In its case, an additional 10% markup is factored into the traditional 15% value-added tax for imported goods from countries not listed in the SACU or the South African Customs Union. That just consists of 5 or 6 countries down there. This means that tech shipped from Taiwan and China is often much more expensive than it would otherwise be in Europe or North America. Now, a country that I thought would have prices a bit higher than it did was New Zealand, where one would expect to pay around $1,000 or so for an RTX 3080, about $600 for an RTX 2070 Super, and about $500 for an RX 5700 XT. This places it in line with the Philippines, with India, and even several European countries. And it's because, despite being comprised of several small islands in the South Pacific, relatively speaking, I don't know, 2 islands or 3 islands in New Zealand are actually fairly large, New Zealand actually enjoys one of the lowest value-added taxes in the world. Additionally, a goods and services tax, or a GST, is only added to imported New Zealand goods valued at $1,000 or more, so smaller merchants may import individual cards one at a time, and a loophole to avoid excessive rates. Just one of the many ways to get around some of those things. The only downside here is that inventory levels may remain considerably lower than the industry average, unless specific deals again are worked out between local governments. A few more observations. Brazil, for some reason, reported lower RTX 3080 list prices than the average country, though many also disclosed that the stock was relatively non-existent, so take that one with a grain of salt. They also, on average, pay a bit more than usual for the 5700 XT, which just seems like an AMD dependent thing, creeping up into the mid 500s. Actually, Chile, another South American country right next door, reported the same higher than average 5700 XT prices. So something's up there. India had surprisingly competitive RTX 2070 Super and 5700 XT prices, still higher than the US or Canada, but worth noting. A few Twitter users also reported widespread gouging of 30 series Ampere cards in India. So there's that. Welcome to the club. And another one you probably didn't expect, Taiwan. Yeah, well, maybe you did expect this one. Taiwan enjoys some of the lowest Nvidia graphics card prices according to the survey, and this extended into the Ampere cards as well. RTX 3080s are infrequently listed for roughly 800 equivalent USD, making Taiwan actually one of the better countries on this list for graphics card prices, on average at least. And my limited experience in this market after several trips to Computex and Taipei, Taiwan, confirmed this actually. I've purchased quite a bit, both used and new, from Taiwanese electronics stores, surprised to pay typically only a fraction above US prices at times for identical products. And this might stem from the country's limited relationship with China, both politically, very limited politically, and geographically, as well as Taiwan's domestic manufacturing plants, including TSMC. So I hope, if anything, that this video at least was a bit insightful in some sort of way. In my 25 or so years, I've only had the opportunity to travel to a select few countries, and I always try to go out of my way to investigate computer tech prices in general at local electronics stores and online. It's very humbling to see just how much more others pay for the same tech. And it could be literally the exact same graphics card, and just because you live in a different country than I do, you're expected to pay more or less than me. I'll leave it there. Leave a comment down below. Please consider subscribing if you have not already. I would definitely appreciate that. Also, check out that bell. That bell does something. You should click it, find out. And yeah, I'll catch you in the next one. My name is Greg. Thanks for learning with me.